Yo, yo, yo! Welcome back to the MMA Short Show. It's always your boy, Steven Moustaris. And before I get into today's video, I just wanted to take a second real quick and shout out every single person who watched my last video, who interacted, who shared their opinions, who commented, who even called me names too. This is why I do this, man. It's fun, to interact and talk about my favorite sport. And if other people like me, who, we got a lot of friends out here, but not all of our friends enjoy the same things we enjoy. So if you guys are diehard MMA fans and you guys can't really talk about it with people, this is why I jump on here. I just sit here and talk about my favorite topics of the sport. And if you guys want to interact and share your opinions, it means the world to me. I'm not somebody who cares about likes and views and subscribers and all that stuff. Like, trust me, I work my jobs out here, man. I'm making my money elsewhere. This isn't something that I care about when it comes to money. This is purely just me talking about my favorite sport. So to every single one of you that watch, enjoy, whatever, I really appreciate every single one of you. And, this kind of brings me into the whole video today, man. I'm sitting here working on another video that I can't wait to get up. And, I'm just doing my daily, checkup on MMA and all of my favorite, YouTubers and Twitter, handles and everything. It seems like every single person right now is talking bad about this, UFC Sphere card or Noche UFC or the UFC 306, whatever you want to call it. And it's everybody talking about how it's a flop and how it's a disaster and a monumental collapse and all these things. And I'm just sitting here like, am I missing something? Yeah, like, sure, I get that the tickets aren't selling that well, but are we that shocked? I mean, $3,000, tickets just to get into the place. I'm not shocked at all. Nobody's buying them. I'm not to break news here for most people, but I'm pretty sure most of us know this. If you look at our favorite fighters, man, most of them got into the sport because they had no other outlet. They were trying to get away from either their bad, family life, or they're trying to get away from the hood, or their bad circumstances around them in the community. Like, let's be honest here. Most of the fighters only do this because this was their only outlet. This was their only way to even, get out of their circumstances. They found a kickboxing gym. They found a boxing gym. They found a jiu-jitsu gym, or now they might have found an MMA gym, but still, this is how they get into this. And it translates with us fans, man. Most of us know, like, hey, we know the struggle. We all work our jobs just to barely make bills and barely, provide for families and whatnot. Like, are we going to spend money on a $3,000 ticket? Like, I get all of that, but we're not the UFC. We're not running the business. Like, how do we know if that's a monumental breakdown? Like, while we worry about, especially as true fans that love the sport, we only care about the outcomes of these fights. And it's really funny to me, if we look back at UFC 292, I mean, the poster's right behind me when Aljo and Suga fought in Boston there. Like, that, I remember that night being one of the most boring nights ever. Like, yeah, sure, we had Chito Vera and Pedro Munoz, and we had Neil Magny and Ian Gary and all these guys, but I'm pretty sure like 90% of that fight card turned out to be decisions, and luckily Suga Sean blew the roof off the building when he knocked out Aljo, and we all left that card sitting there like, oh, that was an amazing card. That was awesome. That all we could talk about was Suga Sean. And I have a hard time looking at UFC 306 fight card here and being like, oh, this is any worse than UFC 292 or any other thing. Like, not only do we have Suga Sean who's fighting, who arguably is one of the top 3 superstars in the world. Like, if he gets the job done and knocks out Merab on the, in 2 weeks at the Sphere, right then and there, it makes the entire card. But you had Alexa Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko, one of the greatest women fighters of all time, in a great trilogy where all the fights have been amazing so far. Haven't been mad at them at all. You have Brian Ortega, Diego Lopez. You got Raul Rosas Jr. on the card. You got Daniel Selhuber versus, was it Robovics or whatever? Like, you got some really good fights on this card, man. And I have a hard time believing that these fights aren't going to deliver. I mean, like, did we not learn from UFC 300 when everybody's sitting here trying to get clickbaity and trying to argue about, oh, this fight got way too hyped and it's not as good as it was? We all left UFC 300 hyped. We all left it like, wow, holy crap, that was the greatest, card ever maybe. This is one of the greatest nights of MMA ever. Like, we all left sitting there like, holy crap. But like I'm talking with UFC 300 and like I'm seeing with UFC 306 or whatever, UFC The Sphere or Mexican Independence Day, whichever one they're calling it now, because there's been so many names. The one thing I will agree with, what does kind of suck with the UFC and more so Dana White as of late, it's when he's telling us, he's hyping up a card for so long, like I mentioned with UFC 300 and whatnot. he hypes it up for so long, and he almost tells us how we should feel about it, and he almost leaves a little to the imagination. So, I mean, yeah, if I'm sitting here telling you all day, like, wow, this ice cream that I just had is the greatest of all time, or this burger or whatever, and I'm telling you for months and months and months that it's going to be the greatest thing you've ever had, and by the time you have it, yeah, I'm sure it's good, but it's not going to be nearly as hyped up, and you're going to feel salty about it. You're going to be like, dude, this wasn't the hype that I was expecting. So when it comes to that, when they're talking about you're going to see the craziest show you've ever seen, you're going to see the craziest fight you've ever seen, like, yeah, we might not get that the way that they're describing it, but if we just look back from an unbiased position and we just look back with a clear mind, like, this is going to be a phenomenal card. It's going to be a cool spectacle if they can pull off what they say they're going to do with just the Mexican, history of not only MMA, but it seems like boxing and all the fighting history with Mexican, pride and all these things that they're doing with it. And I'm sure the visuals we'll see during the fight, I'm sure it's going to be phenomenal, man. But for a one-time, one-off, one fight at the Sphere, one cool thing, like, yeah, sure, the UFC's talking about the 24 million or 14 million or whatever they dumped of their own money into this. But when we look at their profit margins, guys, these guys are not losing a single dime. There's not a single card that they're putting on that they're losing their ass on or having a monumental breakdown or collapse on. Like, this isn't the old UFC anymore. These guys have so many different fighters willing to step up at every time. We just saw it like 5 years ago. They weren't surviving a Conor McGregor dropout. And now that Alex Pereira jumps in, and it's bigger than ever. Like this, the UFC is going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And unless, like I said, when it comes to the performance, like us fans, that's all we care about. I mean, let's not forget, we watched during COVID when there wasn't a single fan in the stadium. So if we were into it then and watching it then, and the UFC grew that big after that, we're not going to give a crap if people are there or not, if there's a few empty seats at the Sphere. We're only going to care about the outcomes. And if Merab goes out there and rides, Sugar all night and it's boring, and Alexa Grasso and Valentina have a boring fight, and Brian Ortega backs out of the Diego Lopez fight again, and, Norma Dumont and Irene Aldana have a boring fight and all these things, like, sure, then maybe it's going to be a terrible fight. But we got to wait for the outcomes, man. And it's just crazy we're not learning from the past and how we're always just sitting here for clickbaiting and whatnot. So the MMA media, all media in general, has just been so terrible lately. And I just sitting here mind blown. So you guys let me know if I'm missing anything. As always, your boy, Steven Moustaris. And like I said, man, I'm hyped for the Sphere. I'm hyped for this fight card. You're telling me Sugar Sean O'Malley, Merab Dvalishvili right then and there isn't selling? Alexa Grasso, Valentina isn't selling? Diego Lopez, Brian Ortega, who might be next for the title fight, like, that's not going to sell anything? Like, come on now, man. It's about to be a fun card. So, as always, your boy, Steven Moustaris. Be ready. I got more videos on the way. And shouts out to every single one of you, man. This is dope. Whoop!